Massive, massive congratulations on a 715 GMAT score. This is an incredible score. A 715 is like a 770 in the old format, right?
Yeah, right.
Standing achievement. And
Thank you.
the score is simply going to pivot you to any B school that you would like to, uh,
Yeah,
be getting an admit. And what I saw from what you shared today, you shared your score report, and you'd applied to ISB and HEC Paris, 100%.
yeah,
Score can help you easily get there. At least that will not be a problem. Now, all depends on the application, what you're submitting. So,
yeah.
are you applying in the round one itself with the score?
So ISB, I applied in the round one, which was last week. Schools abroad, I'm targeting the round two. So I'm working on it as of now.
You
Targeting HEC, Oxford, Europe side majorly. So
amazing.
let's see.
First off, I have to tell you, welcome to the 99 percentile club, right? A beautiful 99 percentile, 95th percentile on quant, 90th percentile on verbal, and data insight, 97 percentile, 88, 84, 84. So do you recall how many questions you've got wrong in each of the section?
I think it was around two questions in data insights.
Yeah,
And cons and verbal, I'm not so sure.
right. It's been some time. It's been almost a few, 3-4 weeks now, I
Yeah,
think.
almost a month, I guess. Yeah, now.
Yes. So let's dive into your journey, Hit. How did you first get the idea of to take this GMAT, and what was your plan moving forward? Can you walk us through the chronological order of your GMAT preparation, including the
Yeah,
study plan, content, mocks that you utilized throughout your preparation?
sure. So I think my first GMAT was 2 years back. So what had happened is I was just looking out for ISB. I was like planning my MBA journey. So to give background, I'm a CA. So it was always in my hindsight that I need to get my MBA someday. And primarily I wanted to always stay in India. So ISB being one of the top B schools was the target. So I wanted to apply for the early entry option. So 2 years back I planned to give my GMAT, but it was a very hesitant thing. It was like I just found out that there is something called early entry. Oh, now need to give my GMAT. So I gave the mock, and I think which was like without knowing anything. So one thing that since when I was young, my cons I have a good hold over cons, despite being from not from a science or technical background. So I got a 650 in the mock GMAT. So I knew that if I put in some efforts, I can probably target get a good score. So then I registered for the exam 2 months down the line, and I honestly because I've been working in investment banking, so my job is pretty hectic. So I couldn't get time to attend classes. So I was like, I'll at least give it a shot by myself. If I don't get a good score next year. So I just saw random YouTube videos and I got the OG. Like I said, the first attempt I got a good 690, which was not amazing, but good enough to apply. I applied only to ISB and I got an interview, but unfortunately I didn't get shortlisted. So next year I was motivated. I got top 1%. Like a friend of mine referred me. And I think I attended one of the trial sessions held by Sandeep sir. And I was like blown away. I was like, this seems good. This since I already have I don't need to learn things from scratch. I am already at a 650, at least level, not 690. So let's put my best foot forward. I was deeply motivated, I got the classes, but then work got too hectic, I lost all my motivation. So
Right.
that was on me personally. But
Yeah.
I think a few of the tricks stayed with me, like the passive reasoning, I think the critical reasoning things, then the finding out the primary purpose of the passage. So all of those tricks were really helpful. And what happened is I registered for my GMAT, but I was 100% sure I don't want to give it.
Right.
So I was like, I've just paid for it. Let's just give it for the sake of it. And I think there was a very big negative mindset at that time. Like I didn't want to give it. So the first question of cons, and so cons is something that I consider my strong suit. So
Right.
last year I cons and it was like a very easy question. And permutation combination is something that I'm a little bit like I think most of us, not just me,
Right.
get a bit. So the second question was from that. It was a very easy question, but I went blank. So I think what happened last year is the first few questions, easy questions, I went wrong. So my base was lowered and I
Yeah.
only managed to score a 660 and I just ended up rejecting the score because it didn't make sense. And then this year I was like, finally now I have to apply like 2 years I have been putting in time and putting in half a set efforts. So again, this year also there was work and all. So I had all the top 1% materials with me and I had seen most of the videos. So I was like, I don't need to use those recordings again for the focus edition. I just searched various materials online, what are the key differences. And one thing that worked in my favor was I am considerably weak at geometry and sentence correction.
Right.
And
That
both
is
of it got
gone out of
eliminated.
the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
That.
And data insights is a strong suit for me naturally. So that is
Right.
something I didn't have to work much towards.
How did you
So I
apply?
just
Yeah. Yeah. Continue.
Yeah. So I just used all the PDFs that I had, practiced a few sums. I made sure to solve the entire OG because what I realized was that I don't want to mess up in the easy questions.
Right.
What happens is at times when we practice the tougher questions, forgetting that, the easier question is also what gets us to the tougher question. So that was my key strategy. That's it.
So how did you approach the verbal section, like in terms of both the strategy, techniques, what material, and how many hours did you actually put in every single day? Because you said quant was your strong suit. So how did you approach the verbal?
So as such, so my study times are very haywire with the traveling and work. So it's not like a specific thing. It's like someday I'm free, I'll just sit with the guide. So I had the OG soft copies with me,
Right.
the top 1% practice questions and the OG soft copies with me. I knew that conceptually there was nothing that I needed to learn again. So
Mm.
what had happened is in my previous attempts, I just made a basic Excel file with the things that were new to me. So
Mm.
I knew content concept wise, that was the only thing I needed. I just need to practice.
Mm.
So what I did is while traveling, at for work, or just in general whenever I was at home, I made sure to solve every practice question and all the OG questions,
Mm.
especially all the OG questions, whether it was easy, hard, very hard. Because what happened is earlier I used to ignore the easy questions, thinking that this is something that is not needed. And the critical reasoning, and also there obviously I had noted a few concepts from the earlier classes. So I just brushed through that and I made sure that I practice every possible question so that I put in my best foot forward. That's it. There was not much.
So you tried to master the octave technique, and after you've done that, how did you go with RC first, mastering that, and then critical reasoning? Did you do it parallelly? How did you master that? Because the score that you got is also very phenomenal. Like there's definitely a big leap from what you attempted last
Yeah.
year. So what are the
So I mastered the RC for sure.
yeah.
I like to be very honest, without being humble, I actually there's a good role of luck also. The exam favored me. I think it was a culmination of all the efforts.
Hmm.
But yeah, I did put in a lot of efforts for the RC. I just I put in more time towards the introspection part, where I was going wrong. And because the things that all the options seem very similar because you like this also is right, this is also right. So when you're left with those two, three options, you need to analyze actually what does the passage want, why is it choosing that and why is it not choosing your answer? So I
Correct.
just made sure this time I critically evaluate all those aspects, but like not get stubborn on my methods and actually understand what does the exam want from me instead of knowing what I want for the exam. So
Right.
that helped me a lot in the RC section. And critical reasoning was just practice.
Right. In through the process of introspection, right? How did you see your like what did you kind of put in effort in trying to improve your accuracy from, let's say, you've got maybe in a one sitting you've taken 10 passages or 10 questions of DI or 10 questions of quant, right? And then you may have got maybe 5 right, and the next section when you've gotten more questions right because
Yeah.
of introspection, what did you employ in that? So what came out as a result of introspection?
So I just made sure to note down my mistakes, where what was the roadblock or critical thing that I used to think which was wrong. And what happened was earlier I used to repeat those mistakes.
Hmm.
Like, so I just made sure I jotted it down that if not for improving my score, at least I make sure that I don't repeat the conceptual mistakes or probably the thinking mistakes that I was doing earlier. I just made that a very key point in my practice of noting things down instead of just doing it randomly without any head or tail.
So, Hetu, were there any point where you were going through some of the questions again and again, and you felt like, oh, but I know the answer, but how were you approaching those questions that you were, approaching the second time or third time?
Yeah. So what I had, so obviously you jot down a few star questions or whatever you call it, that this is something I need to refer again. So I remember there were a few questions which I must have solved 4, 5 times, but every single time I used to solve it by my method and get it wrong.
Right.
So, so there, obviously there were a few such things. So what I used to do is when practicing, like redoing those questions, I and after a point you just know the answer, that this is the answer, and you know that your brain is tricking you into thinking this is the answer. So I used to try. So what I did is I actually used ChatGPT to generate similar questions
Okay. Okay.
for practice. Because I find out this is conceptually where I'm going wrong. So I just put in the question in ChatGPT, fed it with the data. I was like, don't repeat the things, but give me 10 similar questions because I know this is where I am doing wrong. And what happens is that now I know the answer to this question. So subconsciously, my brain is choosing B, but ideally I would have chosen C
Right.
if the question is changed. So that is how I overcame that.
Wow, that is a great
Yeah.
insight. Now, even GPT is also evolved,
Yeah.
Uh, now, tell me about the DI because this is one section that you weren't in your previous attempts, that is in the classic edition, it wasn't taken very seriously because it wasn't a
Yeah.
scoring subject. What the stark difference did you kind of have it here? Did you find that you had to put a lot of effort?
No, honestly, I love DI. I love DI even in the earlier sections. So I was actually with the happiest person. I think one of those rare happiest person. I was like, this is getting included in my score. this is where I already have a competitive advantage. So I was the happiest person. And honestly, DI is the section where I put in the least amount of efforts or time. So
Wow.
DI was actually a break for me. I was like, now I've solved 5 passages. You need to do something else. I used to solve a DI question. That is how I've done DI. But
Wow.
I just made sure I did every OG question.
Right, right.
Uh,
And any particular question in through your preparation? We're still talking about the preparation, not the exam yet.
yeah.
Did you find do you kind of solve every type of questions that is there? Like in retrospect, now that you are on the other side, but did you think that you've touched based on all the types of DI questions? Because there are sometimes very intense question, long questions. Sometimes the answer may be very simple, but the question is very complex. So in through your practice, did you come through such questions? Made sure that you do?
So what I did for DI was I've solved the entire OG. I don't know like how many questions are there. Whatever the OG book told me, I didn't go online to look for extra questions because I didn't have the time, honestly, for it. And I knew that if this is something I'm already good at, let's not put in more time towards it when I have limited amount of time. Let's direct those efforts somewhere else. If probably I had more time, I would have definitely done that. So I've given 3 or 4 mocks and the GMAT OG questions. That's it for DI.
Yeah. So mocks was the full length mock that you had taken up from the
Yeah,
official.
the MBA.com mocks. Yeah.
Oh, perfect, perfect. I think what worked in your favor is the love for the subject. And so you did not really have to
Yeah. Out of it.
generally, it takes even though someone who's got a 715, 705, 755 really had to work so hard on the DI section. Right. So what was your exam experience like? What was the order of the section that you
Yeah.
chose and why did you choose that section? And did you encounter anything unusual in the exam?
So unusual as such, no. So one thing, yeah, I didn't know the score was not downloadable. So I was just a bit scared, I have seen a 715, but I click submit. Is it gone? Do I still have it? Because obviously I was very excited to see the score. I was not expecting such a good score. My target was 695, to be very honest, because that was the highest I scored on my MBA.com marks. So
Right.
like if I have never reached a 700 plus score in the Focus Edition. So that was really like surprising in a good way. So that
Right.
was the only some unusual thing that happened. That I saw it on the screen for a brief second. I was shocked. I clicked on submit because I think in the earlier GMAT you could take a printout with you.
Print out at least, yes.
Yeah, and I was like, wait, I have zero proof now. So I remember till the time I got my score, I was so nervous that is it going to show 715 here? Have I seen something wrong?
Right.
So
Right.
that was the only unusual thing. And apart from that, the experience. So given the 4 mocks and obviously the exams earlier also, I knew that again Quant is where I bank upon. So I wanted to approach Quant first so that I start with a good confident mindset. So it was always Quant first and verbal and then data insights because I was like, even with a tired mind, data insights will naturally get that out of me.
Right.
So I didn't want to push verbal in the end and I didn't want to start with verbal to lower my morale. So
Right.
verbal was like properly placed between the two. And with data insights, one thing I knew with practice was that what happens is there is always this 1 or 2 questions which are very tough, which
Right.
you need to consciously leave for a while. That I'll come back to this, or else you end up wasting all your time.
Right.
Which happened with me in all the mocks. So during the exams, I was conscious that you don't need to fall in love with the question. It's okay, even if you don't answer it. You need to answer all the questions. So I think the last question I was still able to answer. So I just chose an option and I had to like get it done because obviously you need to select
Right.
answers for all of them.
Did it come to a point where, did you lose out on time or pacing was easy? And more importantly, this time you could bookmark and revisit the question to change your answers in each of the sections. So how did that play an important role? And did you take, advantage of that, of those features?
So the bookmark feature is definitely a big help compared to not having it.
Right.
So in cons, what happened was like I was actually thinking that am I doing something wrong because I had a lot of time left.
Yeah.
I was like, why isn't the difficulty increasing? So in the last 1 or 2 questions, I still had 10 minutes left. And I was like, have I done something wrong? Is my base because of the last year thing? I was like I like for a brief moment I became negative, but then I told myself that now what is done is done. Let's not have because there is this subconscious thought always, that your brain going on. And the questions are not increasing in difficulty. Am I doing right? Am I doing wrong? So I had to make sure during the exam that I calm myself down that no, let's not go there. Now this is what it is. We just have to keep on going. So in verbal also, I used to always like I had this the 2 minute thing that don't spend about this minutes for a question. So subconsciously giving those mocks, you develop a habit of always checking the clock. And when you know that this question is something that your brain has not answered, you just select an option and bookmark it. I was able to use the bookmark for cons. I had 2 questions that then I had those 5 6 minutes left, so I just sat with it for 5 6 minutes. Solved it in every possible way, option wise, indirectly, directly. Because now that I have time, let's be 100% sure about it. In verbal, I had a few minutes left, so I could still use the bookmark feature, but it was still not as good as Quant, but yeah, it was useful. In data insights, I was barely able to finish it. So, like, in fact, I had to just mark the last question, like I said. So, I did bookmark a few questions, but I didn't have the time to go through it.
Right. So it's something that you mentioned about your work as well. It was very demanding, at least the last year when you were preparing for it. And
Yeah,
there were times when you just didn't want to give the exam because of the work, right? Or you didn't couldn't make time for it. So what really
yeah.
kind of changed this year? And how did you balance both your GMAT and the work? How many hours were you diligently giving in?
So what happened is, so one thing, my work is demanding, and when my work is not demanding, I'm a very social person. So my social life is also like work to me. Like I'm like I need to put in these hours. So at this time, I knew at least there was this subconscious ease that I don't need to learn anything new because I am already well aware of the concepts. The concepts that I was not aware of are already eliminated. Geometry and sentence correction, where you actually need, especially sentence correction, where you need to be very good with the concepts. So that was a big confidence boost. So I knew, like, since I gave my GMAT last year, maybe not immediately, but since January, I knew that this is going to come up. This exam is something I have to give. So it was always there in the back of my head. So I think in April, May, I think I gave my first mock of Focus Edition in April. I scored, I think, a 615 or something, 605, 615.
Right.
So, but what happened after that mock is I was happy that this is suiting me. Data insight is good. The problem tricky areas are gone. So I think this what happened this time was that just because of the new format or probably because of the past experience, I had a very positive mindset that
Right.
this year I didn't give it as like, a exam. It was more like, something that I was enjoying doing it, to be very honest.
Right.
So
Right.
that really helped me.
Something very solid, you need to enjoy your entire preparation. Otherwise, whatever
Yeah,
effort that you put will all be taken aback, and you'll unnecessarily waste an attempt and all the effort that you have prepared.
yeah.
Very, very right thing that you said. So, overall, when you have to summarize, and maybe if you want to advise your own self, if you are to start, or somebody who's starting
Yeah.
new, all these attempts that you've had, and you had to convert to just one attempt, right? Focus edition was just one attempt for you, right? But
Yeah.
GMAT overall. So, what are the things that you would advise someone to do and really must take based on your experience in the
I
preparation?
think one is that what I did. So what I've learned from my own mistakes is that one, you need to practice at least one question of each type. Because there are easy questions which I used to think, it's easy, why waste time on it? But you have that confidence when you at least solve one question that you're familiar with it. So when you see it in the exam, you're like, this is not something new. Oh, this is something I'm very familiar with. I think mindset is another key thing that we need to make sure that we're enjoying the prep and that you can. So what happened to me also is when I booked my exam, I was not sure I'll get such a good score. Honestly, I was. So I booked it in such a way that I'll be able to retake my GMAT before the ISB R1 deadline.
Okay.
So that was something. In the back of the head, I was like, check, what is the worst that can happen? I'll just give it again. Okay, let's not overthink it.
Right.
So I think the mindset is pretty important. Practicing every sort of question and not letting your brain wander during the exam. Again, another key thing because how much ever you practice, when you sit in that exam, those 3 hours is when you realize, 10 different things could go wrong, even if you practice a lot. Like if you don't start thinking, why are the questions getting tougher? Like, shit, I didn't do permutation and the first question is from permutations. What do I do now? Because obviously the test is adaptive, but at the same time, it is considering your overall score. It's not like one wrong one. And you don't need to get 100% accuracy unless you're hoping for like some 765, 775. But obviously, you can get questions wrong. What happened earlier was I used to get bothered, I know this is wrong and I used to harp a lot of time on that. But you need to accept that, okay, one or two questions will go wrong. I just need to focus on getting the other 18, 19 questions right.
You're right. I think
Yeah.
the entire time work is based on like whatever you do just before the exam counts a lot. On the exam day, you'll have a very, like even Sandeep sir says, right? You can't really take so much stress because then it'll all backfire. Whatever,
Yeah.
work, rework that you have to do is on that day. Then you tell yourself, okay, whatever happens, it's fine. What you're telling, that positive attitude, I think it works beautifully for all the things that you do in life, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
Really given all that you can up till the very end, and then you wait and watch, and if it doesn't happen, then you give another shot. But everything, you'll have to trust the process that you have gone
Yeah,
through.
definitely. And you need to, I think, tailor your own process because I might be good at something. So what worked for me cannot work for someone else or same for the other guy. So you just need to understand what is going to work for you and work on it.
Customization is also
Because,
extreme.
yeah.
Absolutely. So really wonderful to hear all that insight that you've shared. What struck me the most is, the negative mindset to a complete positive mindset, and that's
Yeah.
660 to a 770. It's essentially if I have to convert, right?
Yeah.
That kind of showed up and clearly with that mindset, and of course a lot of practice. That is never, unseen. It is there. That
Yeah.
hard work. 715 is a clear hard work, irrespective of you were very surprised on the screen, but it all says that it was a hard work right there.
Yeah.
So I'm here's wishing you all the very best. I hope all the schools that you apply to, you get through and you get an admit.
Thank you.
And I
Fingers
hope you
crossed.
should be spoiled for choices of what school should I do. Hopefully, even with a better scholarship also, I hope that you're looking for. Thank you so much for trusting Sandeep sir and taking up top
Thanks, sir.
1% as the course. We are really glad and very proud of this score, and we're very humbled as well that you've chosen, at least for this leg, top 1%.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I hope you're happy with the 715 score.
I am. I'm very happy.
Extremely happy. Okay, congratulations again. You have a lovely evening. Thank you again.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.